This surely has to go down as one of the most dramatic rounds in Australia Cup history. The round of 32 of 2024 had absolutely everything. Goals, cup sets, so much drama in every single match day. Let's have a look back at all of the action from the last couple of weeks in the Australia Cup round of 32, because there's so many storylines to discuss and we'd love to get your thoughts in the comments section. So join the discussion. My name's Lucky, this is Coastwatch Football. We do plenty of Australian football content here on the Coastwatch Football YouTube channel, so stay subscribed if you are enjoying this kind of content. Let's start with match day 1, which had some big scorelines. Morton City 5-1 over Campbelltown City. Darwin Hearts losing 6-0 to Hume City. Oakley Cannons defeating Sydney FC in a cup set 3-1. Macarthur FC with the other A-League team in action as well. They travelled down to Canberra to defeat O'Connor Knights 2-1. But the match we have to talk about from match day 1 is that huge cup set. And incredibly, for the second time in 3 years, Oakley Cannons defeat Sydney FC. They did it in the quarterfinals back in 2022. And it was already, an exciting matchup when we saw those two teams drawn for this round of 32. Of course, we were looking back at that quarterfinal matchup. And incredibly, they did it again. Sydney FC, obviously the reigning Australia Cup winners. They went all the way last time around, won the whole thing, and they were looking strong heading into this tournament. Oakley Cannons, though, just outclassed them in the end. Look, something that we'll talk about with a lot of these A-League sides is obviously some of these teams are just like a couple weeks into training, and this is basically, one of their first hit-outs of the pre-season. So obviously, they're still sort of getting their players up to full fitness. It's still very, very early for a lot of these teams, where obviously these NPL sides have been, playing for months now. So, but I mean, that aside, it's an incredible result and an incredible occasion for Oakley Cannons to pick up another huge cup set win here. And they'll be hopeful heading into the round of 16, which we'll be taking a look at a little bit later. But what a crazy match day 1 as well. Hume City with a big 6-0 win, a huge result for them up in Northern Territory. There were 3 A-League teams involved in match day 2. We had Western Sydney Wanderers defeating Brisbane City 2-1. Adelaide United going to extra time against Blacktown City, but getting the win in the end, 3-2. Newcastle Jets 2-1 over Rockdale Illingdon. Lions FC travelling to WA to defeat Perth Red Star 4-1. That result, though, for Adelaide United, there were passages of that game where they really were controlling and dominating, but Blacktown City just did not give up. They pushed them the whole way, and they almost came back at the end. There was a late comeback there from Blacktown City in extra time, and there was a chance it could have gone to 3-3 and penalties, which would have been truly dramatic. Of course, we know the Reds, so experienced when it does come to the Australia Cup. They've won it on 3 occasions, and they'll be hoping to make it number 4 in 2024. Blacktown City pushed them all the way, but the Reds too strong in the end. Then in match day 3, it was an all A-League matchup. Perth Glory 5, Melbourne City 4. This was the match of the round for me. Absolutely insane. Goals for either side. We saw, again, impressive performances from the likes of Nathaniel Blair and Abdul Faisal for Perth Glory, who were looking really good and dangerous as well in front of goal under new coach David Zrilich. And Melbourne City, they fielded a young lineup as well, but were just behind it a little bit. They did control a lot of possession, especially in the first half in this game. But Perth Glory, you always had the sense that they were going to come and push Melbourne City the whole way. They're just the spirit that they're showing, the energy that they're showing at this moment early on in pre-season. I think Glory fans are getting excited about the upcoming season under David Zrilich, because these performances are looking good so far. Yes, they do have to tighten things up defensively, but in attack, it is really clicking at the moment, and they look so dangerous on the counter-attack. What a game this was. 5-4 for Perth Glory. We had another huge cup set in match day 4. Wellington Phoenix losing to South Melbourne 1-0. Melbourne Serbia defeating Modbury Jets on penalties. That was a big upset as well. Lambton Jackals were hosting Melbourne Victory, but Victory too strong in that one. Their first hit out under new head coach Patrick Kisnorby, winning 4-1. And Olympic Kingsway defeating Edgeworth Eagles 4-1 as well. That South Melbourne win, though, I mean, that's the result that we really have to talk about, because Wellington Phoenix, they simply just, they were missing so many of their key players from last season. Scott Wooten was sort of the main senior player in the side. Barbarousis and Royhouse off the bench in the second half, but it wasn't enough in the end. South Melbourne, who have been so good in NPL Victoria this year, in attack and in defence as well. Harrison Sawyer scoring the goal for them in this game. He's been great for them this year, and there's even some talks of him potentially returning to the A-League. Plenty of fans reckon he'd be able to give it another crack. And there's a lot of excitement, I think, around South Melbourne now and their chances heading into this the round of 16 and beyond. Potentially they could make a deep run, and we'll talk about their chances a little bit later on in the video, but Wellington Phoenix, really disappointing considering the A-League season that they had last year. Look, they were hoping to have a good cup run here to kick off the new season, and you know, obviously these cup games are so important for these A-League teams to give them competitive action heading into the A-League season, but Wellington dropping out in the round of 32. And then Matchday 5 had another huge cup set. Heidelberg United 3, Central Coast Mariners 1. We also had Olympic defeating Apia Leichhardt 1-0, and NWS Spirit defeating Glenorchy Knights 3-0 as well. But Heidelberg United coming up against the A-League premiers, the champions, the AFC Cup winners, Central Coast Mariners, were looking to make this trophy number 4 for this year. But once again, incredibly, crashed out of the Australia Cup round of 32 for the 3rd consecutive year. It's becoming a bit of an issue for the Central Coast Mariners when it comes to the round of 32 in the Cup. Got really poor form at the moment at that stage in the Cup. And Heidelberg United were just a better team in the end. Look, from a Mariners point of view, being a Mariners fan, there were good passages of play for the Mariners. There was, a handful of new signings featured in this game. Alfie McCalmont worked really hard in midfield. Victor Fay-Howell looked dangerous on the right-hand side in the first half as well. It's obviously, a new setup for the Mariners with so many new faces in the side. Lucas Moragas was working hard down the left-hand side. But Heidelberg United was so strong and so solid in defense. I mean, that one goal for the Mariners coming from Mikael Docker early in the second half, that deflection. But aside from that, they did so well to hold Mariners out, especially in extra time when Mariners were pushing late on. Heidelberg were just so compact and so solid and just did not give up. The incredible spirit that they showed in the game got them across the line in the end. Central Coast Mariners, though, crashing out in the round of 32 amongst a number of other A-League sides who were already out of the Cup. It is quite incredible indeed. So here's a look at the road to the Australia Cup final, and incredibly, there are only 6 A-League teams remaining in the round of 16. 6, which means 6 have already been knocked out from this year's Cup. NWS Spirit, Melbourne Victory will be an interesting matchup, a big occasion for Spirit there, but you'd imagine Victory will be favourites. Moreton City hosting Perth Glory. Glory looking red hot at the moment. They'll be backing themselves in that game. Olympic Kingsway from Western Australia hosting Adelaide United. Lions FC host Western Sydney Wanderers, so it's another trip to Queensland for Western Sydney. And then we've got an all A-League matchup in the round of 16. The only one, it's Newcastle Jets, Macarthur FC. That'll be a really fascinating match to keep an eye on. And then we've got some huge matchups, especially in Victoria. I mean, Oakley Cannons, Heidelberg United there, 2 teams from MPL Victoria who obviously know each other very well, coming together in the Cup. That'll be a fiery match for sure. We've got Hume City playing Melbourne Serbia from the 3rd division in Victoria. It's an incredible story, and it would be a remarkable result if they could defeat Hume City in this match to get through to the quarter-finals. And then lastly, another huge game to keep an eye on. South Melbourne hosting Olympic FC, Olympic from Queensland, South Melbourne. You look at that sort of corner of the bracket, and they'll be backing themselves to make a deep run into at least the semi-finals. There's so many interesting storylines when you look at this bracket, so many interesting pathways. I mean, one potential matchup we could see is maybe an Australia Cup final on Saturday the 5th of October of Melbourne Victory and South Melbourne. I mean, wouldn't that be incredible? I mean, Melbourne Victory, arguably the biggest club in Australia, in terms of their fan base and their success overall. And then you got South Melbourne, one of the clubs in Australia with the richest history coming together. I mean, in the final, that would be truly a remarkable match for the Australia Cup. But so many fascinating storylines, and look, I'm sure we can expect some more cup sets in the round of 16 as well. I mean, there's no guarantee that any of these A-League teams will cruise through to the quarterfinals. We'd love to get your thoughts on this though. Who do you think will go through to the Australia Cup final? Because it's really, really interesting seeing some of the matchups that we could get quarterfinals, semi-finals, and through all the way to the final. Thanks so much for tuning into this round of 32 recap. My round of 16 predictions will be coming out a little bit later here on the channel. Hit the like button on the way out. My name's Lockie, this is CUPSETS Football, and I'll see you in the next one.